Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Chenard, the Pembroke Town Manager, and today I'm going to do a quick overview of our upcoming special town meeting. The special town meeting will be on October 18th, next Tuesday, at the Pembroke High School, beginning at 7 p.m. So let's get right into it. I'll talk about what we can expect from arrival through the warrant articles and talk in detail about several of the warrant articles. Okay, so as I said, the town meeting is a special town meeting beginning on October 18th. As you arrive at town meeting, you'll have to check in with the town clerk's office. They'll be right in the lobby at the high school. Any registered voter can participate and vote at town meeting. When you check in, you'll be given a card that's going to be used in the event of a written ballot. Any article can have a written ballot with a request of voters. You must use this ballot. No substitutes will be accepted for any written thing. The moderator, he'd like to begin town meeting promptly at 7 p.m. So please arrive early and be seated in the auditorium so that we can get started right on time. Also, residents who are voting should participate in the auditorium. Visitors or residents who aren't voting or want more space can do so in a cafeteria. We're going to have 2 rooms set up so that the overflow can participate. When you come in, the moderator would like you to come into the main meeting if you're going to be speaking and speak on any article. So this year for the special town meeting, there are 8 warrant articles, and they range from capital programs to funding budget items. And even a couple special ones this year, which we'll get into. Here are a quick list of the 8 items, 1 through 8, for everyone to take advantage and take a look at. Article 1 is balancing the current year's budget. So we're in fiscal year 2023 that began on July 1st and will end on June 30th next year. Most communities in the Commonwealth actually elect to not fund 100% of their snow and ice within their operating budget and actually close that out at the end of the fiscal year. There's a number of ways to do that. Historically, in the town of Pembroke, we will have a warrant article on our special town meeting that will close out those items. So this year we have a snow and ice overdraft of $353,980.83. We have to close that out. So we are proposing to fund that to cover the costs so that we won't have to do that within the tax levy recapitalization process. Second article is to fund collective bargaining agreements. That's Article 2. We have settled most of our agreements, which were funded in the spring. However, we have a couple that are unfunded. We have now settled with the Pembroke Police. We have a memorandum of agreement in place, and the contract will be executed as soon as town meeting funds that. So Article 2 will be to fund the collective bargaining agreement that we have agreed with the Pembroke Police Association. Article 3 is a capital funding article this year. We have several items on the list, from a new police cruisers, which is an annual item. There's requested one, all the way to road resurfacing. I'm going to highlight a couple of these that I think are important, and the rest are there. We've talked about it in several meetings, and obviously you can take a look, and if anyone has questions, they can contact our office. One of the items I want to talk about in a little more detail is a weapons replacement. You may recall that a couple of years ago, we replaced some of the long guns. These are for the handguns, 35 handguns, total cost of $17,000. We've noticed at the range that some of the handguns are starting to fail, and from a safety standpoint, we need to move forward and replace those. The next item I want to highlight is the roadside mower. This has been on the capital plan for several years, and excuse me. Because roadside mower has been on a capital plan for several years. And we wanted to do a little research, a little study. We actually conducted a cost-benefit study this year. We went out to bid to see what it would cost us from a contract level for roadside mowing. And we got those prices. We actually did some mowing to see what it would look like, and then completed the cost-benefit analysis. And we found out that through the useful life of a roadside mower, it is less expensive for us to actually purchase that than to do that same work via a contract. So we have put this on the capital plan for funding. this fall at the special town meeting. Um, so take a look at the only other one I wanted to talk about real quick is the roadway pavement management chapter 90 supplemental funding. I think that's important. We have a pavement management plan that was completed last fall and through the winter months. And what it says is that we're not keeping up with our Chapter 90 funding alone is not keeping up with our roadway condition. We have an ICR, or infrastructure condition rating, and that is declining. And the recommendation was that we'd start to fund in addition to Chapter 90. So this is part of that recommendation. We're asking for $600,000, which will pave a portion of Valley Street and really start to tackle Monroe Street, which is one of the worst streets in town. And if those people who cut through on Monroe Street know that it's actually very poor. So this will be a continuing item as we see in future town meetings also. So there's a capital plan, Article 3. Article 4 is a community center building project. You'll note that last year the town voted to authorize $19 million toward this project, and then voted an override on the following Saturday as a method of funding that. So we borrowed that $19 million. That's already in the tax payments of the town, and we borrowed at 1.8% interest, which is outstanding. What we found was that when we went out to bid, which was completed earlier late summer, early fall, that the bids came in higher than what we had originally planned for. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what we're getting for this. Obviously, we're getting a new building, just under 28,000 square feet, and an important piece of that is to fund it. And if we don't fund it, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and determine what we can do. First floor plan, big gymnasium, which can be separated into a double gymnasium, big multi-purpose room, senior center offices, and some other things there. On the second floor, we're going to be on the first floor, also we're going to have a kitchen that will support some of that structure. Second floor, we're going to have several meeting rooms, multi-purpose rooms, recreation space. For the second floor, you can see recreation offices here. And one big thing is a big walking track that is above the gymnasium. Really, really nice. I'm looking forward to that myself. And then space for the recreation department after school programs. So project cost, let's talk about that real quick. We originally estimated the $19 million. After the bids came in, that project cost is estimated to be $22,611 and $611,625. So that's after the bids. We know exactly what that cost is based on that. So bids, we had two bidders. Chenard Construction was the low bidder at an $18,362 for the construction phase. I want to take a moment and talk about Chenard Construction. Chenard Construction, we were very fortunate, is from right next door in Hanover. There are several advantages to having a contractor that's low for mobilization purposes and meetings and other things that if you have a contractor from out of state or up in the North Shore or Western Massachusetts, you don't have those same advantages. So Chenard has been in business since 1962. They've completed several recent municipal projects, and those include a ton of stuff. I'm not going to go into every single one, but you can see their list is extensive, from major school renovations to DPW renovations, public safety projects, libraries, all over the place. Hanover Library being the close to us. They've done some work at Mass Maritime, Steamship Authority, and Needham Town Hall. So they have an extensive experience. And I'm really pleased that they are our low bidder. So let's talk about projected costs for the community center. The original $19 million back in May of 2021, when we originally voted this, we had estimated that cost to be $133.25, the average annual cost. And that was estimated at a rate of 2%. When we actually went out to bid after the appropriation was made, the actual impact was $127.41 at an interest rate of 1.8%. So we actually saved over our original estimate there. Moving forward, to get to that new cost, we'll have to borrow an additional $3.1 million, which would get added to the debt exclusion. and the estimated cost to the average taxpayer estimated annual cost to the average taxpayer is an additional $25.95, and that's at an estimated interest rate of 3.75. Interest rates, believe it or not, they're not 1.8 anymore, but they've been relatively stable between 3% and 4.25%. We think, given the current market where we're at, the 3.75 is a solid estimate at this point. So that will make the total project, the 22,611, 625, with a projected average annual tax impact of $153.36. I'll note that currently, and assessments do change annually, but currently the average single family home is valued at $451,778. So funding sources, we'll talk about that a little bit and how we're going to fund the project. Obviously, we're asking for an additional $3.1 million. We have the appropriation from 2021. We have the 2021 legislative earmark from our legislators. Thank you for that, of $200,000. And we have American Rescue Plan funding of $310,000, eligible funding of $310,000. Not all of this project is eligible for American Rescue Plan funding. So, but we do have $310,000 that we can use for this purpose. There are some pending earmarks in the 2022 legislative action. With the House, there's a $200,000 earmark, and with the Senate, there's a $100,000 earmark. For the Senate is specifically for senior center equipment, which we can certainly use within this project. There's a lot of equipment in the kitchen and in senior center that we will have to buy that's part of this cost. So if that passes, we'll be able to reduce the borrowing and not borrow all of those funds. And then we have the federal earmark, which is under HR 8294 of $3 million. I don't know if any of these are going to ultimately come to fruition. I certainly hope to. I'm incredibly confident on the two state ones. On the federal one, you just never know. It has passed the House and is pending in the Senate at this time. So people have asked about operating costs. We last year, about a year and a half now, had a company do independent operating cost analysis for us. We have updated that operating cost based on current costs. So this is where we're at today. First year of operating will be a projected net increase of just over $104,000, and that number changes slightly over the first 5 years, but it's very, very close between a low of 103,023 and a high of 106,748. I want to note that when we are building our budgets and our budget estimates, that we are including these costs in our budget process. And at this point, we are confident that our budget can absorb these costs and we'll be able to afford that. So this, just as a summary, we will get a 27,800 square foot building. And for the residents, it will be successful for both the seniors and the recreation department. They will share this space in some new space, allow the seniors to expand their programming, allow recreation to expand and continue many of the programs that are available. So our residents deserve it. I'm hoping that our residents support it as they did in the past. So Article 5 is the Swanberg well field and pumping station. You will note that our water capital plan, this has been on the plan for several years, actually been in process for several years. Much of the engineering and permitting through the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, has been completed. This is the final appropriation based on an estimate through our consultant engineers, and this will finish the design, the local permitting, build a well field, and a chemical feed pumping station at the Swanberg well site. You may recall that we bought the Swanberg property several years ago for this purpose, and it takes several years to get through that process. So this will be a borrowing through water. It is a request of $4.5 million, and it will require a 2/3 majority because of the borrowing. So I want to take a moment to talk about our water capital. Through our water rate study that was accomplished a few years ago, we have laid out a capital plan. That capital plan is available for anybody who wants to review it. This will be the first of a couple of wells that we're going to be doing, and then there's also some storage capacity with a new 750,000 gallon tank, which will be moving forward through the capital plan as we go into future years. Article 6 is the acceptance of the provisions of the Massachusetts Veterans Brave Act. It's under Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H. And what this does is basically it exempts taxation for any service member who was basically killed in action. It exempts it for the parents of those the Gold Star parents of those folks. We have very few in the town of Pembroke, fortunately, but those folks deserve this, but it does require town meeting action to actually approve this. It has been recommended by both the advisory committee, the select board, and as a town manager, I am also recommending the passage of this article. Article 7 is made up of 4 community preservation projects. These are all supported by the Community Preservation Committee, the Select Board, and the Advisory Committee. The first is a request from the town manager to do some work at the Lydia Drake Library. We've done some studies, took a look at that, and it needs some work. We're requesting $25,000 for that purpose. The next article, the next section of the recommendation B, is a sum of $12,850. That's also a town manager request for replacement. And you'll recall that the 2 beaches at Town Landing and Little Sandy, the floats at those beaches were damaged in separate incidents a few years ago, one by ice. And I have to top of my head, I don't recall what the other ones, but basically they're not usable at this time. There's a huge demand. Our beaches are one of our gems in this community. So this is my request for $12,850 to replace those 2 floats at those 2 locations. Recommendation C is a request from the Clark Library trustees. Last year, you may recall that they requested funds to repair the roof. Unfortunately, just like the community center and so many other projects that we're doing out there, costs have increased, and this is an additional $10,000 to complete that. And then the final request on the community preservation is for repairs. It's a request by the Pembroke Historical Society for a repair to the Quaker Meeting House, and that is a request of $36,575. And finally, the last article from our special town meeting this year is a request to transfer land for land parcel for the purposes of sale. Several years ago, the town took this parcel through a tax title process. The taxes weren't paid. We attempted to auction it and had no success at that point. It was then transferred to the Board of Selectmen at that time, and now we have a request from an area resident to us to put this out to bid. And so to do that, we now need to transfer the property to the select board for the purpose of conveyance and to authorize the select board to convey the property. We'll be working to determine a minimum value, which would be voted by the select board. It is mostly wetlands. If you take a look at the parcel, it's map F-9, parcel number 38, also known as 754 Washington Street on the corner of Washington and Congress. It's incredibly wet and really isn't, you can't build a house on it separately. It's only good to neighbors or anyone else who wants to own this type of property. So also recommended by both the advisory committee and the select board, and I recommended to the select board that we move forward with this. It basically takes this parcel from a town-owned land, which just sits there and we don't collect any taxes on it. We would get money from the sale of the property initially and then collect the annual taxes on a regular basis moving through that. So that concludes an overview of this. Anyone who is watching this and has questions, feel free to contact me with any of those questions, and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.